All right, so we've got the start of our evening is the Mike Driscoll Python Pop Quiz. You can find it on his Twitter handle at Driscoll IS. I forget why it's IS. All the same, he's an author of a number of books. He does a Substack. I believe he's working at John Deere, but I'm not certain. I know when he was there, he was doing some computer vision stuff for one of their fancy add-on modules. Like if you wanted to do computer vision for spraying your crops with weeds or something, buy one of these $9,000 add-on pieces, and he was working in the kernel there. So no doubt he's doing some pretty sharp stuff for our agricultural industry, but he does these pop quizzes. This one was yesterday. So do we have any guesses in the chat as to the answer here? Let's see. All right. Deanne says he has prepared the Driscoll challenge in the Python tutor.
Okay, so can you see the Python tutor now?
Yep, come through.
Okay, so Python tutor is very good because it lets you visualize what's going on inside the computer. What we're able to do here is, like a debugger, we can step through line by line. So towards the top left corner, you've got the little piece of code. You'll notice I put some extra print. I put an extra print call, and I put some extra arguments into the print just to help. And below the code, you'll notice that there's a next button and a last button and two grayed out, previous and first. So you can step through the code, and you can even go backwards, which is a bit of a novelty. So the first line of code is executed. We press X. We can see on the right-hand side what's called the global frame. Python keeps its data in frames. That's just the terminology. Don't worry about it. You can see X is equal to Python and Y is equal to Python. And then if I print those, you can see that in the top part of the right-hand side of the screen. And you can see that it's not only printed out the word Python twice, once for X and once for Y, but it's printed out the two memory addresses, and you'll notice that they are the same. They both end in 676320. So what we have here is X and Y pointing to exactly the same part of memory. In other words, X is an alias of Y, or Y is an alias of X, whichever way around you prefer. Okay, then we come to line 3, which is, of course, Mike Driscoll's second line. And what we have here is the plus equals. Now, that is equivalent to saying X equals X plus quotes rocks. All right. Now, ask yourself the question. X is what type of data? It's a string. Is a string mutable or immutable? Answers on the back of a postcard. If it's immutable, what happens to X? So if I press next and we move on, you'll see that the value inside X has changed, as you would expect. And if we print out that last line, not only do we see the answer as Woody requested, Python rocks space Python. The space, by the way, is coming because of that comma. All right, so the default in a print format, when you call the print function, if you have multiple arguments to your print function, it will separate the values with a space, unless you tell it otherwise. And we can talk about that if Woody wants to, if we have time. But looking here on the right-hand side of that, printing the IDs, you'll notice that the ID of X has changed. It used to be ending in 6320, and it's now ending in 8592. So the address has changed. So the X that we're talking about now is a completely different area of memory. You could think of it almost as a completely different, well, it is a completely different value from the X that we had originally way back at line 1. Contrarily, if we look at the ID of Y, you'll see it ends in 6320, which is exactly what it ended up with, what it ended with way back on line 1 and line 2. So Y hasn't changed. And that's the other thing. Some people are thinking because X is an alias of Y, that if you change X, the value of Y will also change. The value pointed to Y is the same as the value pointed to by X, and therefore you change one, the other one changes. But that's not true if you are talking about immutable data types. Okay, how's that, Woody?
Pretty good. Now, I had a question about references, and I think maybe you alluded to that with your last comment on immutable data. And so, like, often you can store a reference to in one variable to another variable. Is that the case where if we had updated X, also Y would have gotten updated?
Yes. So
Okay.
if you were talking about a mutable data type, then the story changes a little bit. So I'm going back to the editor mode of Python Tutor here. If we change this to a list, and just for fun, let's do that for no good reason whatsoever. And now we say x dot append, excuse me. We can run the same. Okay, so our code has changed slightly. There's our first line. Now notice how you have an area of memory on the right hand side. It has a yellow background on my screen, which has a list which represents a list, and you've got two elements on the list. So you'll notice the index of 0 and 1, the indices, and you have those two string values inside making up the list. And you'll notice that X and Y are pointing to the same area of memory. So in this case, they very definitely will give us the same IDs. So there we go, 6992 at the end of that one and 6992 at the end of the other one. So that's still the same as it was before. But now we're on line 3, we're doing an append to X. We're not actually looking to change the memory address because we are dealing with a mutable data type. So what we've done, we mutated the list by adding a third element to the list, and there we are on the right hand side, the yellow. You can see we now have an index of 2 with the value rocks. But over here, look at our X and Y in the global frame, and you'll notice that they're still both pointing to the same area of memory. So although we only appended to X, Y has changed as well. So now if I print things out, so I go to line 4 and in the code and print that out, you'll notice that we've got pi, hon, rocks, and then that's X, and then we have Y, which is pite, hon, and rocks. And if we look at the two IDs, the two memory addresses, if we are a little bit loose with our language, you notice they're both the same. They haven't diverged the way they did with the mutable string, z, plural. Is that what you were getting at, Woody?
Yep, that was the one.
So the difference is mutable and immutable, slightly different behavior, but in both cases, the trick is to understand how aliases work, or how aliasing works.
Right. And then also understanding that as you do string manipulation, you're not altering whatever that initial memory space was. It's putting it into a whole separate one.
If you're talking about an immutable,
Immutable, like strings.
Yeah, because with our original code, line 1, X was pointing at one area of memory, and then from lines 2 onwards, or line 3 and 4 in the case of my example, you're pointing to an entirely separate area of memory, because you can't change the value inside X. You have to change the location where you've stored whatever value is now going to be called X. Okay?
And then JP had a question. He says, the variables basically serve as pointers to the address where it's containerized. Here's a few minutes.
And that's excellent point. Yes, That's why I like the Python tutor, because it actually has these arrows, the pointing from the global frame into the object area of memory, into the um, we do have to be a little bit careful with our terminology. Right? So, first of all, pointers have particular meaning in some other programming languages. We do not use pointers in that context. So, whereas C or Java use pointers, we don't have that sort of equivalent way of thinking in Python. And what was the second word? The second word. Sorry, I've forgotten what he said, and I can't see it because I'm looking at my screen.
He said containerized, which I think is something of a reserved.
Yeah, yeah. There's another problem with a word being used in multiple different ways. So, yes, if you think of these arrows, connecting the labels, so your identifiers, X and Y are identifiers, and they fit on the global frame. But then you have this area of memory, which is where all the data is going to be contained. So how do we connect the name X to the area of memory, which is containing the value, which in our code we want to refer to as X? And the idea is, yes, we have this arrow. Perhaps we should use the word arrow instead of the word pointer. But yeah, you want to think of it that way. When I was first learning programming with languages like Fortran, and this is when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, we always thought of an identifier like X, or we would call it a variable name, as being a particular address in memory. And so it was like post office boxes. Each area of memory had its own post office box number, but that's not the way Python works. Python works by allocating dynamically, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage in some situations. So once again, it's one of those things where there are lots of advantages that you perhaps don't even realize you're taking advantage of, but every now and again you discover that there's a little trip or a trap or a gotcha that's going to grab you if you don't fully understand these things, which is why Michael plays these games on us, Michael Driscoll.
Yeah, and they always look so simple on the surface, but as it turns out, it's a nice peek under the hood at one small bit of one of the pieces of how the whole thing works.
That's one of the great things about Python. It's a very simple language. It's very easy to pick up, easy to learn. The proverbial learn a language in an afternoon. You literally can work through your way through the syntax of Python very, very quickly and pick it up and start running with it, and particularly if you've used other programming languages. But of course, there's more there than immediately meets the eye. Good phrase, Woody.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I think that was a pretty comprehensive look at what Mike was showing us in 3 lines of code. All right, so moving along. A little bit of humor before we get started. Semicolon. You can put semicolons in Python, but if you've used any other language like Java or C, for example, if you want to show that you've ended a line, you got to throw a semicolon at the end of it. But we get to mess around with white space and try to figure out when someone's using tabs instead of spaces. All right. Welcome, everyone. The second edition of California Python, the rebrand from Sacramento Python. We've rebranded to be a little more recognizable on the global accurate edits, and to more accurately represent the membership as well as the number of different places that I tend to produce this event. All right, so tonight is basically the Woody Show. We did have a speaker lined up, but unfortunately he was called away for duty. and so he couldn't make it tonight. Hopefully, we'll get him at another one in the future. So it is July. That means we have just started off on the third quarter of the year. And so, since this is a Brazen Studios production, I'm practicing my quarterly updates. Now, they're not too technical. I'm not going to run you through a bit there or anything like that. It's usually more a bit of a slideshow of the last 3 months or so. So, oh, that's a little further out. All right, so this is I call it the frymatic update. Frymatic is my GitHub handle and my SoundCloud handle. It's kind of a gravatar. That's a picture of me a friend took back in the day at some event, and it looked kind of cool, so I've been using it a bunch. Got a bunch of interesting ones. We got some updates from Livermore at Shea Twinkles. A recent collaboration with a group out of Folsom, California by the name of Minokawa Aeronautics. Who has Alex joined us? I sent him a link. Is he with us? Doesn't look like it. He was a maybe for tonight. But we got some pictures. And we've been collaborating a little bit. Deanne and I are often on a Saturday group called San Diego Python. We got one show and tell from that. Updates on a game I've been working on for literally forever, now called Rec League. Another update from my current headquarters in Virginia Beach. And we'll have a few minutes. Oh, you know what? Tony, I forgot to do this. I need to reshare this because I need to share the sound. Because when we come around to Python documentary time, we're going to want to hear that one. And then we'll talk a little bit about the state of CalPy and then a recent publishing of a book that Brazen Studios has had its fingerprints all over in the last 6 years. A novel by the name of Postmodern Venus, which is now available on Amazon. So, without further ado, let's take it away. All right, first up, Livermore. Dr. Tanim Islam has been a gracious host of mine a number of times in the last year or so. Beginning of last quarter, so April, I was there. And then somewhere through the corner, I moved to my present situation. But out in Livermore, I've been bombing around on a beach cruiser that I ride at this funny party in the desert. This was me vastly underestimating the distance between one location and another. I don't think this was even in Livermore. I think I was a town or two over at this point. That was supposed to be a 5 mile day, and I think it was more like a 16 mile day. All the same, there's a lot of really nice places to bike around there because Livermore, as it turns out, in California, was the original wine country. So some very scenic landscapes. Now, as I said, my handle is frymatic, and so there's a strong cooking theme. And so Tony lets me experiment in his kitchen. This was my first attempt at one of his favorites. What's it called? Seek kebab?
Yeah, sea kebab.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I have some ideas about what to do next time around. So we'll hit that again. I think maybe I need to cook like early in the morning because it's looking like it's starting to warm up there. Now, Twinkles runs the house. We are merely staff for Twinkles. That's Twinkles there. You saw him on the Brady Bunch photo shoot moments ago. And so, of course, we had to take some of my collaborations and pay tribute to the real king of the castle. So that's a mock-up of some Chat GPT art and a little bit of, I think I was doing that in Blender or something, but it was some model I found off of Thingiverse or Printables or something like that. But that's an STL model. STL is the format that you send to a 3D printer to, make that real. And so let's see. This is animated GIF. Here's Twinkles in action, showing us his fire pole technique. He's an agile little guy. I think that might be next up in the Twinkle's 3D printing game. So here's some of the doodles and market research. Now, the initial project in Tanim, or rather Twinkle's room where he allows Tanim to also reside, there's a wall that has fairly open space, but at the top of it, it's kind of one of those half walls. And so the aim is to figure out what sort of footing he likes and sort of create like a ladder or a stairway for him to be able to make his way up and truly have his domain and be able to look down on the rest of the room. So hopefully we can complete that one. Have you seen him go up it yet?
No, I don't think he's a fan of it. I don't see him. He just ignores it right now.
Yeah. We gotta I suspect to some degree he might not like the printing because it causes ridges and it might be kind of sharp for him or something like that.
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, so we'll iterate a little bit more on do some user experience stuff and figure out the ergonomics for what parrot toes like. I think
Yeah.
he was on one of the other ones. I think the next one. Oh wait. Like I think I saw that there was some evidence that he was on one of these like cage mounted ones.
Maybe for a little bit.
Yeah.
But
But we're gonna figure it out because once he's got his terrain lined up, he hops around no problem. Like he navigates that lamp like no issue, or at least goes down.
I
Does
mean, he likes the lamp. It's a place for him to beg for food
yeah
and just eat, perched either upside down or
yeah
right side up on the lamp.
yeah he does that kind of like bat thing where he hangs off the bottom of the lamp. That was always fun.
Uh
All right, so this was the first attempt at mounting some of these in a fashion. I think they might be a little too far apart or something. Because
huh.
that's maybe a whole body length. It might be more like half the distance or something, might be a more addressable. It's like, those are interesting, but you're asking me to jump? Come on, peasant. Anyway, when I'm out there, I like to practice my knife skills. I always do an apple for myself, and I have some funny dental issues, so I always gotta cut them. But I realized that Twinkles really likes fresh fruit, and I was working to get to like ergonomic like sweet spot for him. So I got it down to matchsticks for the apples. And I was trying to find a video to put on here, but I couldn't find it. But he'll hold on to one of those and just kind of nibble it. It's pretty funny.
There's one on Instagram. I wonder if I can easily share it. I don't know. Instagram is always being
Yeah.
weird about their videos, but I can put in the link, and there might be the possibility of people being able to. Oh gosh, yeah, Instagram has just gotten so much worse over the past 10 years. But
Well,
yeah, there's.
well, Twinkles is the mascot, so we can bring that up next time because I think
Yeah.
I'll be presenting from Livermore next time. So yeah, I'll leave my little tribute in the morning. Some matchstick apples for Twinkles. We did a little housework when I was out there. Got the couch swapped. Plex quality assurance mode right there. And while I was out there, I was collaborating with my friend over in Folsom and working on this dartboard project. The dartboard's mounted on the wall near the garage. That's one of those 3D printed things. And again, that was just a light ring that I found on the internet and just printed it out. And I'm working on some stuff on that. And I've been working on doing some active lighting on it. So that's a little microcontroller. That one's called a microbit and it operates using MicroPython. And so if you ever wanted to do some hardware projects, that's an interesting way to do it. It's Python-ish. It's not quite the same as, 3.13 or whatever, but reads about the same as Python. And then it allows you to drive GPIO, like pins and whatnot. And it's got a whole array of switches, but basically I was using that to drive a number of LEDs. So there's a little up close look at the LEDs doing their thing. This is some sketches for those LED mounts. Those LEDs there are like painfully bright. I feel like I need to get some eyewear before I start working on wiring those things up because those are 100 lumens. For reference, an iPhone light, like the flashlight on the back, that's 50 lumens, and those are pretty bright. Double the brightness is enough to have freckles in your vision for a good week or so. So, but yeah, so there's my buddy, or at least his hands. Did he make it in here? Anyway, that's my friend Alex hanging out in the sitting room in Twinkle's house. He initially tagged me in to help him with avionics for a drone project that he's doing, and one of his aims was to 3D print some drones. Now that's a quad rotor, but his aim is to do some fixed wings, and we'll look at some of the prints a little bit later. Oh, now, as it turns out. So Alex Rodriguez is that guy who's he's got the fancy socks there. That was us trying to figure out some part of his controller setup. We had some firmware issues. We had some, it was all kinds of stuff, but it's since flown. But anyway, his LLC is called Minakawa Aeronautics. He's collaborating with a friend of his who's down in Irvine, who's I think he's like aerospace, like bachelor's or something like that, and is, I think, perhaps doing an internship or some role like that. But they're doing fixed wing drones, and he's got a 3D printing rig in his garage. So whenever I make it back to the hometown, I pop over another town and hang out with him and futz around with his tech and see what he's been up to. And
Oh, you want the video of Twinkles? I sent you an iCloud link. I wonder if it works. It might, or I could put it on Zoom.
oh wait, I think I can find it. Let's see, is there any good way to do that? Can I just like download it?
Or there's a link actually now. Let's see. Here we go. I put it in the chat.
Oh, very good.
There's Twinkles standing his ground right now, if you heard him screeching there. That was the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of the Apple swords.
Yeah, but he's it took a little figuring to get the width down, but yeah, he handles the matchsticks pretty well. Like if they were too big, he'll kind of like take a chunk off and then make his little soup. Oh no, he's still making the soup. You can see him throwing the chunks off, but he'll hold on to a whole thing and go through it. But if it's too big of a thing, you kind of gotta like just hand it to him. And he basically only lets Tanim do that. If I do that, I'll come back with like a bloody finger. Oh, Twinkles, you're such a good mascot. All right, all right. So on with the show. So this is the latest print, or one of the latest prints. The aim that they're going for is this is a lower scale model of what they're trying to do. What the aim is to create a swarm of firefighting drones, and so that reservoir in there is to be the hold a bladder of flame retardant or something like that. And so they're sort of iterating through and figuring out the fastening bits and whatnot. I don't know if you can tell, but under the models there's a little gray thing with a grid on it. That's the print table. And so they have to print it out in chunks. And so they're working through, how to adhere those things, either with fasteners or some sort of, adhesives or whatever. But it's been fun watching them move along through the thing. They are iterating quickly. And as you can see, they're getting pretty clever with the infill there. It's kind of like a hex honeycomb. I think there's some squiggly bits there as well. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but these bits break off, but these bits are actually structural. And so, they're starting to think it through. Oh yeah, you can't see it on this. They've got winglets. Winglets are these little things. If you fly on a typical, 737 or something like that these days, they're typically sort of at an oblique angle, maybe 80 degrees or something like that. But there's some new era of winglets where you have a curved tip to it that has yet to make it into commercial airlines, but there's some benefit to that. So they're doing the thing. It's been pretty fun. And so last time I was in Livermore, I started joining up on this Discord group called San Diego Python. They do a Saturday study hall, which is always fun. A whole bunch of different characters from a whole bunch of different industries. Who's in there? DM, we've got like Ray, I forget what his background is. And then we got like David, who's from like defense contracting. And then we've got one of the main leaders of the group just retired from UC San Diego. She taught Python there. Diane, she with us tonight? No, she didn't join tonight, but she's been at a number of these. A whole bunch of others. Jorge always has great insights on things, but it's 2 hours of freewheeling. There's loose rules about, if someone's monologuing a little too long, we'll kind of bump it on to the next topic, but it's always pretty good. Oh, and then Drake runs the whole thing. And I think this one's David's thing. Does this work? Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry about your ears. That was loud. That was something he was working on with, what was that, WebGL? Does that sound right, Dean?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But then
he's sort of having a second childhood. He's
Yeah.
enjoying writing little games. So
yeah.
if you're into that sort of thing, he's looking for people to collaborate with.
Yeah, that's been fun. I'd like to start sharing stuff more, but I feel like I haven't gotten anything totally finished yet. Although I typically join that one while I'm on walks, so it's a little more verbal only. But I feel like that might be a group that I could share whatever might be the first module that's ready for this thing. I'm currently calling Rec League. I might go back to the initial one, Red Eye game, because there's like a multi-entendre on Red Eye. But the idea is it's a computer vision oriented thing. And so it's about pointing a camera at a game and ostensibly having some sort of intelligent refereeing going on via the game, namely via computer vision. Red Eye, though, was like, the red light when you're recording something, and then some other concepts. But there were some reasons that I thought I'd rebrand. But yeah, Recording League. So I've been working on this one, or I've been talking with a friend of mine who's out in Denver. And one of the things we were working on was just general activity recognition. And so I had some things on darts that I presented on in the past. But the thing that I really started on was just exercising. And so I've been going on back and forth with him. We'll just send a video to one another, and it'll be like, do as many pull-ups as you can and send it to the other person. And then it's, kind of tit for tat. So there's my friend doing some pull-ups. We're getting on in age, so we're just happy to be able to do one. There's me in Virginia Beach. Might be nice to have a higher mount. I'm almost hitting my knees. But the vision for the game is to be able to point a camera at it and then it be able to recognize things like proper form, or at least proper execution. And in a pull-up, you want to go from full extension to chin above the bar. And so, it would give you no reps if you did it wrong or something like that. But for now, we're basically doing what would be akin to like chess in the mail. Of like, all right, here's my turn. Now it's your turn. But anyway, so that video is me in my present space in Virginia Beach. It's just over to the side. So we'll move on to the Virginia Beach section of the game. So I'm here at Dr. Joe Mota Esquire's house in Chicks Beach, Virginia Beach. He was a U.S. Navy lawman back in the day. Now he's a vet and director of some legal group over at Oracle. And it's been fun meeting his friends and getting to go to the beach. And my favorite yoga spot's 5 minute walk away. My tan's getting pretty good. All right, so there I was on the way there. It's like, ooh, yoga room. I didn't do any yoga. Maybe one of these days, but I don't know. Maybe that's a little too crunchy. That's me and Joe. We're doing haircuts. Buzzed our heads for simplicity's sake. First order of business when I got there, he had like a deck screw in his tire, so I got to do one of those plug kits. It's always fun to work with your hands, unless you break things, but it's also fun if you get it done. And I got it done, and it's been working. Got his bike ready to sell. That thing was in pieces. Seems rideable. I haven't ridden it yet. Maybe I should do that tomorrow. Did some cooking there. He had the stuff for spam musubi. So he said, "Hey, can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I like spam musubi." I mean, I'd never done it before, but give me a recipe and I can follow it. I'm also a pretty good short order cook. Turns out sometimes you just need some brunch. Fixing the AC. The old AC had a bird's nest in the exhaust and was backing up, but the new one's working pretty well now. One of our friends in the area, oh, he's running this right now. This is just down the way, right up at the beach at Chicks Beach. This bar called the Green Parrot Grill. It's karaoke night there tonight. Now, yesterday, the place was shut down because a Hollywood movie was shooting there. I don't know when it's set to release, but they wrapped last night, and the last scene they shot was in the Green Parrot. It's a movie called The Pirate King, starring Rob Riggle and Jordana Brewster and a handful of others. And it's about a guy, I believe he was in the Marines or the Navy or something like that, and got out and kind of lost his way, but then found his community in a group of pirate reenactors. And so it's sort of based on a true story of that whole thing. And I guess Green Parrot featured at some point in his history. So last night it was shut down, and tomorrow is 4th of July. So I suspect tonight is going to be booming, but we'll hear about that tomorrow. When I travel, I like to make sure I'm using my company expense account as much as possible to keep things buoyant. So one of the things I always do is top the tank off. And I'll do some power tool work. We had some drainage issues, so we found a powered auger and drilled out the drains. Got the downstairs bathroom working again. That one was fun. I've been sort of a package management guy. Let me tell you, I can work a mean Allen wrench and break down a quick box and take returns to UPS as needed. Now that was one of the Amazon orders like broke, and so we did a shuffle and got a whole new order in. took the one broken piece, shoved it back in the thing, returned it, and got a chair back up on it, four legs. Here's a picture from Chicks Beach. Just behind me is the Chesapeake Bridge. This is a photo of a very warm day, just about to become a very rainy day. Some pretty ominous looking cumulonimbus there. And when the thunderheads get going here, the claps of thunder are pretty real. And one of his friends is real into pool. I think he's playing a game tonight at this place called Q Masters. He brought me around to a tournament. They're like, who the heck is this guy? I didn't win anything, but it was fun. And some of those guys are really good. He gave me one of his challenge coins. He was a special forces in the Marines. That one's kind of cool. Ooh, am I on camera right now? I think I am. Maybe I can hold it up. Can you see that? It's kind of neat. Thanks, Steven. All right. So this month at EuroPython, the Python documentary will be airing. And so hopefully I'm going to reach out to the PSF per Tunning's recommendation and see about doing a screening. I don't think I'll do it at one of the monthlies. Maybe I'll do like a separate meeting or something like that, but it'll just be a viewing party. So we've got the trailer here. It's just a few minutes, and I think I have sound sharing. If anyone's available to unmute, could you verify that this is working?
Okay, Google, where was PyCon held in 2015?
Yeah, it works.
Oh, it was Montreal. Really?
So the story goes that Guido invented Python over a Christmas holiday.
Okay, Google, where was that of code? 8 times 1.
The story goes that Guido invented Python over a Christmas holiday.
I showed it to Lambert and I said, look what I made. And he types one very short line of code and it crashes the interpreter. And he knew that it would.
The point escaped me. I didn't know why he thought this was better than ABC and why he had done this whole project.
That was a pretty crushing experience, to be honest.
Immediately on trying it, I was just amazed and thought this can't be as good as it is.
You can see Python code, even if you've never written a line of Python. And if you know how programs work, you can understand it and grasp it.
You see that click in real time.
We were paid our salaries every 2 weeks, and then suddenly in late October, we weren't.
It was a moment where the shit could have hit the fan. If all the Python guys went their separate ways, Python wasn't big enough to survive that at the time.
Trying to build a language is non-trivial. That actually took real design, real thought, and real ecosystem collective innovation over the course of decades.
That was my car when I lived in Virginia.
I think it was me who suggested that Guido be called a benevolent dictator, and then Barry suggested benevolent dictator for life.
The Python 2 to Python 3 transition was extremely difficult for the community.
Some of that probably got away from us a little bit in hindsight.
I did feel like Python has a chance of becoming irrelevant.
When you don't have role models who you can relate to, you start believing that you cannot do it.
When I first saw the Walrus operator, I didn't like it.
It got very vocal and blown up.
One person's succinct, elegant code can be another person's unreadable puzzle or a fustigated mess.
Nobody had expected I would resign, and certainly not that I would rage quit over this issue, which essentially it was.
How much of Python's success in AI can be traced back to these scientists in the 90s? 100%.
Python's a fantastic language, even if you're not a scientist. I just don't think it would have risen to the level of dramatic usage without the science first, data science and machine learning story. We had a massive impact in the world.
All right. So as I said, that's going to premiere later this month at EuroPy. I don't know if anyone's attending, but there might be some way to beam in. All the same, I suspect the documentary will be openly available after that, if I know anything about Python. So we'll do a watch party. So keep an eye out on the meetup group for that event. All right, moving on. More Python Software Foundation stuff. CalPy. We're rebranding as California Python because everyone knows California. Some people get confused about Sacramento, which I always found funny because I'm like, well, that's where I'm from. Why don't you know that? And it's the capital of California. But also, I tend to bounce around in California. And so, you know, and since we're online and getting people from all over the world, why not just call it California Python? And so we still do Sacramento stuff, and people often talk about in-person. And if you want to do in-person, SacTech does an in-person. I'll probably try to get that in the list of events that we do. And so if you're not on there, if you've come through Sacramento Python, that's okay. I'm going to keep updating that one with basically a mirror of the same events. But in the California Python one, I've been aggregating other events from within California, like the San Diego Python meetup, and then I'll probably do some others as I collaborate with them. And the hope is sometime in the next month or two, we'll end up joining the Python Software Foundation Meetup Pro Network, of which Auckland, New Zealand's Python group run by our beloved DN is a member. And so looking forward to that. And then last but not least, on the Brazen Studios quarterly update, the recent release of a book I've worked on as like an editor and coordinator. You can find it at www.postmodernvenus.com, and it is on Amazon now for sale. Buy your copy. It is based on a true story about trials and tribulations with being mishandled in the judiciary in San Francisco. And so if you're familiar with any of some of the past work we've done 2 years back, I don't think Robert's with us tonight. He must have been busy, but he collaborated with me on a hackathon group back in 2023, and we took this. Oh, someone's beaming in. Oh no, I'll just mute. All right. Anyway, so that whole story was the inspiration for the UN World Innovation Day